Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. This week is episode 25, despite it not being the 25th week in the year. We're doing the weird numbers anyways. This week, we're going to talk about some big news that hit that, to no one's surprise, Andy Muschietti may be directing Batman the Brave and the Bold. But also the big topic that Michael and I have been geeking out about behind stage all weekend, how Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse not only fixed all of Sony's weird multiverse plot holes, but it just solidified itself as probably the best representation of a multiverse that we've seen thus far. So we're going to talk about a lot of things for both DC and Marvel today, so stick with us and let's get right into it.
I got to have a cinematic event, a popcorn movie, if you will, with people chugging popcorn inside of their mouths, watching kids lose their mind. And I can't tell you how wonderful it was that the movie paid off.
Oh my God. The movie. Before we gush for 30-40 minutes on just this movie, let's talk about the Batman news first off, because this is something that's been blowing up my inbox all day, and a lot of people were also blowing it up saying, hey, you teased this weeks ago. How long have you known? And I'm like, okay. So word came this morning this morning, because we're going to publish this the same day, because why not?
Why not?
Word came this morning from One Take News, a.k.a. Big Screen Leaks, a.k.a. fantastic track record if you're on Twitter. Word came this morning that Andy Muschietti of The Flash is his Flash follow-up movie is not even going to be Flash 2 yet. It's going to be Batman the Brave and the Bold. The Batman family project that we knew was going to be a major milestone for the DCU, because not only was it going to feature a brand new Batman, but also feature the first on-screen Robin in 20 plus years, and the first live-action appearance of Damian Wayne, and likely the first film version of Nightwing and other members of the Bat family, because it's kind of, if you're going to tell that story, you got to tell the other stories, because it's all connected. Right. And James Gunn is a stickler for canon, and he's not going to say, oh, we're going to introduce Damian and none of the other Robins ever existed. He's going to be like, no, we're going to make references, and Nightwing's going to be alive. Jason Todd's going to be dead. Tim Drake's probably going to be there. Batgirl's probably going to be Oracle. James Gunn is the kind of person that says, if this is the canon, let's go with the canon and go nuts with it. And the idea of having a Batman 10, 15 years into his story, now having a kid means the Bat family is established. So this news dropped, and as I mentioned in the opening stinger, for the better part of the last 3-4 weeks of Q&As, people have been asking me, what do you think Andy's going to do next? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe a project that we already know is coming. I kept like just teasing, and people figured out pretty quickly that I was referencing Batman the Brave and the Bold, because I mean, I heard from a handful of people that was what the course was taking. So,
well, it makes a lot of sense. Look how much Batman is in the new Flash movie. I know it's called The Flash, but there sure seems to be a lot of Batman in it, Taylor.
A lot of Batman. More Batman than probably The Flash. No, seriously, The Flash is still the main character. He does have the most screen time, but the second runner-up is Batman.
I don't know.
You could probably argue that the combined screen time of two different Batmans is probably on par with The Flash.
My dad doesn't call to tell me I want to see many superhero movies, but seeing Michael Keaton on film and with his Batman is like, maybe I got to go see this Flash movie. You know what I mean? Like, and that's going to get butts and seats.
It's going to get butts and seats. But you know what? I'm going to do something that I normally don't do. Wrong button.
Okay.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Right now, we're at the 4-minute, 39-second mark. If you don't want spoilers, jump ahead to maybe the 6 or 7 minute arc.
Okay? Of what?
Okay, so in the next minute and a half, I'm going to basically say what's going to happen. So at the end of the Flash movie, at the very end of this movie, Barry is going to be walking down the courthouse steps. His dad is a free man. Everything's great. A car pulls up. a faceless Bruce Wayne steps out of the car and Barry's like, holy shit, who the F are you? Right? The cut that we have currently been screening to everybody and their mom has nobody shown. The camera pans up and stops. It doesn't show you the face. I have heard two things that this could be. One, it is George Clooney showing again that Barry is in the wrong universe and setting up a sequel where he needs to find his way home because he thought he made it and he's not there again. Or two, it is the new Batman for the DCU because Andy Muschietti is directing this film and he's going to show right off the bat, here's the universe, here's the new Batman, here's Ezra with the new Batman.
They need to separate all of these movies from Zack Snyder's world because as of yet, they have not. And all of these movies are still based on all of that.
Yeah.
The George Clooney one is amazing because much like we're going to talk about later on, if you canonize everything, it rises everything because it's now an offshoot story.
Yeah.
And secondly, James Gunn has got to start getting people excited for this new universe. And I think that is that's in the camp of like, show this thing. And, you know, I don't know what happens in Blue Beetle, but I don't think we're talking about new Batman in the new Blue Beetle movie. So, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. So with that, I mean, there was news that came out over the weekend. So now we're at the 6.5 minute mark. Now we can stop talking about that end credit scene for the Flash. And that's not the post credit scene either. I can talk about that scene too. And it's not as big. It's cool, but is what it is. But what we have now is that the DC universe as a whole is definitely shifting, is definitely changing. James Gunn himself said that the proper DCU does not begin until Superman Legacy comes out. And now we know that Superman Legacy, along with every other movie in Hollywood, has been delayed because of the writer's strike.
Officially, it has the stamp of delayed on it?
It hasn't. It's still going through casting, but once the SAG strike starts, they can't even do casting, so then they stop.
Taylor?
The Batman, however, has shifted its start date for filming from November to like January, February. So they've already accepted that we can't even do filming this year.
The SAG strike is going to happen though, right?
Oh, 100%. I've already talked to a handful of people. The vote already happened. Everyone I've spoke to already voted yes. Everyone was advocating to vote yes. Reality is they're probably going to announce it in the next few days that the SAG strike is happening, and then Hollywood is going to crumble.
How quickly from the SAG do you think the directors will strike, or do you think that they don't want to piss off the system?
I think that the directors are equally as pissed off as the writers and the actors are too. I think everyone knows that the hierarchy of power that exists in Hollywood is very one-sided, and it stopped being about the art and more about the corporation of income that these things generate. So
well, and we need to continue with Batman talk. We need to continue, but let's take a quick aside here about this piece of all of this. Today, now Apple announced that new headset thing.
Yeah, it's like $3,500.
Yeah, it's going to be very expensive. But who was sitting on the stage with them? Disney.
Yeah.
Disney was on the stage saying, guess what? We are working on content right now for this device. Now, it's going to be fun to watch Avatar in this thing. Like, it's going to be another screen in your house. But I think we're going to start seeing ride simulators and, there's that show, the court show with James Marsden. Are you watching that comedy with the normal guy? Okay, Taylor, let's take that exact same show, except you wear some goggles and James Marsden's talking to you being like, I was in the Sonic movie once. Like, they are going to go to Hollywood to start writing for these content, and this is why they're on strike. Yeah. Because if I write all the best parts of a new adaptation of the Pinocchio ride, do I see any money off the streams of this thing? As of now, no. And It'll be interesting to see what happens. So, okay, technology is coming, and it's going to want content, and no one's stopping that.
Yeah, and what the strikes are now doing is the strikes are standing ahead of all of these things. They're basically saying, hey, change is about to occur. AI is going to be an issue. This is going to be an issue. We need to put out these contracts right now ahead of it. So I think what they're doing now is that I think the SAG strike is going to kick in, the director strike is going to kick in, and they're all going to basically be saying the same thing. AI should never replace writers. and we need to get ahead of this other medium, because if streaming was the current issue, if Disney is already looking at the next thing beyond streaming, they need to be like, okay, so Disney's already trying to find another way to swindle us. Let's get that conversation in the loop too. Immersive content needs to also be in the conversation.
And like, if you're writing, I mean, now we're talking about video games and stuff. If you're writing hours and hours of dialogue for these worlds, you should be. I don't understand why people aren't making a living off of this.
So, I mean, I was reading today that apparently the market for video games in particular, the market share that video games have produced this past year was higher than both movie, TV, and music combined. So everyone is realizing that video games is the market.
And a video game is all of those experiences. The people playing the new Zelda game are in a different world, Taylor. They have a soundtrack that's amazing. They are involved in action sequences. It's blowing,
Don't even get me started on that game, because I've lost myself into it. I don't even know where I'm at or how much of the story I've actually done.
Sure.
But I went on a side tangent, and I'm like, I want to find all these dragon tears. And then my heart was ripped out of my butt when they revealed what the heck happened to Zelda. And I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't ready for this.
Sure.
Like, I was fine building death machines to fight the monsters. And now you're telling me that the world is actually in danger.
Right.
It's such a unique thing. And I mean, I've been having such a hard time with juggling my new stories of games. Like, I beat Jedi Survivor. So they came out, I'm like, I have to not touch Zelda until I beat this game. I beat it, loved it, realized that Star Wars is probably in better hands with immersive storytelling than one-off TV shows. And I was like, okay, now Zelda's ruining my life. So,
yeah, I get it.
Did you see the clip online of the guy who made the Metal Gear in Zelda?
No.
I'm going to recreate this thing.
He made the giant robot, crazy robot.
It moves. It has a railgun on its back, and it can shoot across the entire map and kill things for it. And I'm just like, this is a death machine that Hyrule is not ready for.
And they haven't even there's no DLC for this game yet. Like, we don't even know what they want to do with all of this. Like, I don't think they're going to do an arena or anything like that, but I don't know. Let's see what other
There's actually an arena in the game. And
of course there is. Of course there is.
A very great way to get some actual stuff. I'm going to find. Yeah. Okay. Here's a picture. I'm going to show you, because I want you to understand. I want you to understand how insane Japanese game players are right now with this game.
How many hours do you think you put? How many hours does he think it makes to make a Metal Gear?
I don't know, but given how many hearts he has on his screen, I have half that, and I've already sunk 40 hours into this game. So, just to bring it up, I want people to understand this is a freaking Metal Gear. Metal Gear, the original Metal Gear Rex.
And it works. And it works, right? It walks around and shoots a gun.
It's got little leg things that it zips around like a tank, and that giant railgun looking thing is literally a giant railgun. I'm at a loss for words for how freaking cool that is. I posted a meme the day the game came out saying after Hyrule was saved, Link made Gundams and took on space. And then the next day, a buddy of mine sent me this and saying, hey, someone's already started that reality.
Well, here we are again talking about traditional media and seeing, where these audiences go when your content isn't there. I mean, look at the sales number for this game. Lots of people are getting into it. And I talk to people that I ask people all the time, do you play video games? And I can't tell you how many people tell me Tears of the Kingdom or the other game was their very first game.
2 of the doctors that I work with texted me, have you beat it yet? I'm like, have I beat what? Zelda. I'm like, are you playing it? And they're like, yeah, I'm lost in it. I'm like, you're a surgeon. What are you doing? He's like, I'm just not seeing my kids. I'm doing surgeries, and then I'm playing Zelda.
Yeah. I mean, God forbid. And they're in their office. They have their briefcase open. They're just playing it while the briefcase hides them. I'm busy, nurse.
No, one of them actually used to do that. Like in the office when he was in between patients, he had his Switch on Office, and we would be talking about things to do in the first Zelda game. So no, I knew that. This game is insane. No way around it.
But how do you compare this with, how do you compare this with a TV show, which is such a passive experience, and the writing is either there or it's not there?
That's the thing so after Mario came out, Everyone said, what's the next Mario? What's the next thing? They should adapt Zelda. They should make a Zelda movie. 100% they should not make a Zelda movie. Zelda is too much of an expansive story for 90 minutes. It needs to at least be 7 or 8 90-minute episodes, because that is the kind of storytelling that Zelda has done over the last 30 years. Each game is a series on its own.
Yeah, and it has to be, there's not a lot of talking. Like, I know that people think about like the story, but like Link doesn't talk. Most of the game, it would be a very quiet thing. So you would have to be able to show these stories in a long form way, in a really long, because there's so much, like you can't even start in the first game.
Like, they made Link the silent protagonist, just like they made Samus and Mario. The idea was that the protagonist choices that they made were going to drive the story. But in the last few Zelda games, they've made it so that there is a narrative that Links do speak, kind of, but the narrative is driven by the other characters. And now, like, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have this insane story, this insane rich background, and you realize that, okay, all of these games have this. They're just now displaying it a whole lot better, and now they've got voice actors, and it's insane. Right. So I'm very curious to see what they do, and I would love to see them adapt Zelda as like a long-form series. And I mean, imagine one season of Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, that one pair of games that you and I played a ridiculous amount.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear this whole conversation. The answer is Star Fox. They haven't done a game in a very long time. They don't know what the water is like. Star Fox is 4 fun characters in a fun world. That should be a movie, especially if we're only talking about an hour. You can do so much with a Star Fox adventure.
Do a barrel roll.
All of it. You can just do all of it, Taylor.
Yeah, all of it. All of it.
I mean, you would do that. I mean, I don't know. Or the other thing I'd say is like do an F-Zero. Don't do another. You got to get away from Mario. The fact that Mario did so great is a great thing, but like Samus, a Metroid movie would be with the Samus would be where my head would be at. Like really change genres.
I mean, but you know as well as I do that because Mario crossed 1 billion, they're gonna like, all right, now we're gonna do Donkey Kong next. We're gonna do they know where their audience is. Mario 2, Luigi's Mansion, and Donkey Kong are the next out the gate. And
and you know what? I haven't seen Mario yet. Whatever references were in this movie, the next movie they now have to do Mario Brothers 2. You know what I mean? They have to do like now they're going to pick up radishes. Like anything they didn't hit, they have to start going through all of those different worlds now.
Okay. Well, they did tease a sequel already, and it's really exciting.
Does Sonic show up?
No, it's Yoshi tease.
Great. But Yoshis were in the movie.
Not the green Yoshi, not the rare one.
Okay, not the real one. Okay, got it.
Yeah, but honestly, like I loved it to pieces. It was such a ridiculously very linear children's movie, but it was like watching my childhood. I mean, we grew up with Mario, and I would say definitely just blind buy it. As soon as it comes on physical release, just go buy the damn thing. It's fun.
Do you think? Well, I guess Kirby can't talk. Kirby's like a squeakball. I don't know if he talks. He's never like, please, I would like more dinner now. He's just as well like a squeak boy.
I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Kirby talks, so I don't know. But Kirby would be another one you could do because his adventures would be so fun.
Okay, Mario movie comes out tomorrow. Go buy it.
Isn't it? Can't I buy it digitally already? Isn't it streaming?
Support physical media. I mean, I'm going to just and this is the segue to my next thing. Disney. Everyone gave Warner Brothers a bunch of shit for what HBO did with purging content and killing Batgirl. Disney made that what Warner Brothers did look like nothing because they purged 1.5 billion in content, and these were projects that were only on Disney Plus and will never see the light of day unless Disney brings them back.
They're dead? They're really that dead?
If Disney, I mean, depending on the nature of how Disney purged the content, they might be dead. I mean, Incredible Ivan with that's gone. They never physically released it. There's no way to get it now, except for the pirates who have their pirate websites. I might go watch it there now because. Right. But at least with Warner Brothers, the content that they pulled off HBO Max, you can still physically find it somewhere. Right. Even if it's on an old DVD, you can still track those things down. They're not gone forever. So.
And you can already see on my Max homepage. They're putting Discovery content on there now. They're doing TV content. I mean, they have opened up, you know, it's crazy that HBO changes their name every 6 months. So here we are again, and now it's the Max, and it'll be something different in a year from now. But I mean, it's all gearing up.
Max next,
yeah,
you know
but I mean, but look, you know, it's funny enough. Look at what they are showing. What is the content they're showing on there now? Reality TV shows that usually don't need writers.
Yeah, the unscripted stuff that nobody needs to unionize.
Now it's all scripted, but they're making producers and other people on the show write these things, and they're not paying writers for it.
It's not so much
problem.
It's not so much that they're scripted, is that the producer walks in and says, "Hey, today we're going to have you do this fight.
Right.
Make the fight happen." It's like the producers give notes, and then they pretend that that's what they're doing. Like, honestly, like people who think reality TV is actually real is a problem.
Well, and Paramount was trying to make me pay for Showtime, but I feel like Showtime is just going to go in there now. Showtime is just going to show up inside of there because
later this year it's going to be just folded right into it, which is okay.
It's fine, but it speaks to how they're not getting those good contracts, that they're not getting the writers and stuff like that they're getting for a Showtime show.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said it before, like how with streaming media, there was going to be a point where oversaturation became such an issue that they had to start consolidating, and now that's what's happening. They are consolidating apps. HBO absorbed Discovery. Disney literally announced a few weeks ago that Hulu is getting its content absorbed into Disney Plus by the end of this year.
Yeah, is that what I was going to say? What is Hulu going into Disney, or is Disney? So they're just going to stop the Hulu app?
No. So the apps will still be existing separately, but all the Disney-owned content that is currently on Hulu would now be on Disney Plus.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like right now, like you have HBO Max, became Max, but you could still have a Discovery Plus subscription if you wanted, but all the same stuff is there. That's what they did to Hulu. They're killing the app quietly and making Universal suffer for it.
Because Universal opened up their own app on Peacock, and that has all the Universal stuff right now.
Well, I mean, they also had, was it Universal that had the other chunk of ownership in Hulu, or was it NBC?
It is NBC Universal. I mean, they all are buying each other. So yeah, I mean, it basically is that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, man.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to Batman.
That's about that.
We don't have. There's no way to even put a start date on this.
No, not right now, because right now the system, we're on the cusp of truly breaking. So the way I kind of see it is what happened last time. I mean, if the project is too close into pre-production, that the strike destroys it, it'll be just like Justice League Mortal, and the project will die. If enough of the project has been filmed that the studio believes, hey, we can make this a thing, it might survive. Like the way I see it is Deadpool right now is in this weird spot where they've already started filming.
Deadpool's not getting canceled. They'll put it on a shelf, but everybody wants Deadpool to come out.
Right. So that's kind of how I see it, is that right now it's in this weird, that won't die, but plenty of other things will die.
Oh boy. What do you think is on the chopping block? Like, is there any, like right now, if we were to look at that Marvel roadmap for this year, do we think maybe we don't get the Avengers movie? Do they think those movies maybe meld into one, or a different story?
Well, I mean, it all kind of also depends on what happens with Jonathan Majors. I mean, they still haven't publicly announced what they're doing with him, but I don't know, man.
They're just going to get another with the Ant-Man movie, right? They'll just get another one of those guys. They'll just get another guy as be the main guy.
Yeah, they'll just be like, Jonathan Majors was one variant of Kang. He's not the only Kang, and they're going to bring out like a different guy. It's going to be Terrence Howard. They're going to bring him back. Next time, baby, I'm Kang.
What a crazy full circle if they got Terrence Howard to come back. He's like, no, this is who I am in the MCU. This is who I am. This is who I've always been.
It's like, I'm not War Machine. I'm Kang. And comes out like that. Like that would be hilarious to me, honestly.
I feel bad that series feels so all over the place, and so like the difference in quality of how good Guardians was to some of those other things. I hope they have the momentum they need to whatever this Avengers thing. I mean, I hope the Nick Cage show is good.
The what?
The Nick Cage show.
What Nick Cage show?
The Secret Wars show. Are we getting on Disney? Aren't we getting? I apologize. Nick Fury.
There you go. I was like, what are you talking about? Nick Cage is DC, not Marvel.
I was so convinced. I'm like, yeah, he's there. The guy from the Rock movie. He's a superhero.
Yeah, different.
Yeah, that Nick Fury show has to do so much work to get people excited to see these teams, because I don't think it's happening yet, and I don't think the Marvels is going to do it.
No, the Marvels is such a. I don't know. I think the Marvels should have been a Disney Plus show.
Yeah, and not make people go see it. I don't think they have more than 2 hours worth of story, which is why they don't want to do it. But maybe they should have just done it as a TV show.
Yeah, I mean they're trying to ride on the coattails of how good the other two characters are versus Captain Marvel.
Sure,
but those other two characters were great on the TV shows, not on. They haven't proven themselves on have film presence yet, so we'll see what happens. I guess I don't know.
Okay, then let's transition to the thing that went really well, and I feel like everyone needs to start taking notes. Taylor, did you like the new Spider-Man movie?
Okay, so to preface this, I know I said I was going to do a review on it on the socials, and this is sort of my review.
Oh, great.
I will give this movie probably an 8.5 out of 10. It's not a perfect 10 because it's not a complete movie. It's kind of like how Endgame and Infinity War was. It's hard to judge one without the other. You can't really watch one without the other. It's also, to me, it's like Empire Strikes Back. Like Empire Strikes Back was only made truly great by how well they stuck the landing with Return of the Jedi. So,
I do not think that point was made clear to a general audience. I do not think the general audience knew that they were going to see the Empire Strikes Back of these cartoon movies. And calling them cartoon movies is maybe not an accurate depiction anymore. They are Spider-Man movies, and they are just one branch of Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. So again, we're going to bring this up. Boo! Spoiler alert, because we're going to talk about some things. Last week, I tweeted, yes, there are going to be live action stuff in the Spider-Verse movie. Yes, we saw an actual scene filmed specifically for this movie. We saw the Spot talking to Mrs. Chen from the Venom movies and him saying, "Why are you not weirded out about me?" And she's like, because she deals with Venom eating people in her lobby. So that was a specific scene tying that not only is this movie canon to the Venom movies, but later in the movie, they showed Andrew Garfield, they showed Tobey Maguire, and they did show Donald Glover as the Prowler. So we had all three Spider-Man cinematic universes shown in the movie.
They also showed a cartoon. Was that Spectacular Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Okay, I knew that there was the big eyes. I was like, that's not my Spider-Man cartoon, but that's one of the Disney shows.
That was actually Sony's last animated project before Disney came in and said, now we're doing animated Spider-Man.
Okay, got it.
And if you haven't watched Spectacular Spider-Man, Michael, sit down. It is like it's 2 seasons, I think. 2 seasons. You will watch it and you will get mad because it was probably one of the best representations of Spider-Man ever done on media up until the PlayStation video game.
Right.
So Spectacular Spider-Man was so damn good that it's hard to say why Disney? Why did you cut him at the knees? They had some amazing stuff planned. You screwed it up because it's such a good show. I watched it with my son. I fell in love with it, and we have multiple versions of it on DVD and Blu-ray now because we just keep buying the new versions every time they come out because it's such a good show.
One of the things that I felt, and Taylor said, and we said this to each other when we got on here, it's interesting that this movie is it's a family movie, but it's not really a kid's movie because the movie because we are setting up for a really great payoff. There's a lot of big setup and a lot of emotions and talking about what's at stake. And the third time that happened, my audience was all the little kids started chatting. Like, what's happening? There's no more running on screen. There's no more fun adventures on a space train going up into space. Why? What are we doing here? It's not like the Mario movie. Mario movie, move. This movie has real long dramatic scenes. And I don't know if it's necessarily a good movie to bring like a rambunctious kid to.
Oh, 100% it is not. I made the choice to not take my toddler to see this one and took my older son to see it. We both went out of it saying, and my son kind of encapsulated it perfectly. He's like, this was a really dark movie. And I was like, he's like, physically dark. There's some really dark scenes, but there's also some really dark stuff that kids shouldn't really be like. He's like, this was like live action quality storytelling. It's like the closest. He basically described it that this is the closest thing that America has ever come to a truly mature American anime. That's not heavy metal. Right?
Yeah, I think you're hats off to the boy if that's where his head's at. Because I think you're right. I think that there's emotion worthy scenes that you would see in live action, but it's very good, and they're still able to play really funky with the tones.
Yeah.
I will say that, as much as the marketing material showed stuff in this movie, I was surprised at how many surprises there were for me seeing it. I don't think that the villain of the movie was very well known. I don't think one of the big set pieces of the movie, that Spider-Man, I don't think they've shown him at all. And I bet he's going to be, how when a movie comes out, the next trailers that come out are the first act. We're going to see Indian Spider-Man in those trailers.
Yeah.
And like a week from now, that's what the trailers are all going to be.
Yeah, and I was kind of caught off guard by how, first off, with the toys, the Marvel Legends action figure wave, the toys that they put out, they had the cyborg Spider-Woman as one of the big figures. I maybe saw that character half a second. They should have made a toy for Scarlet Spider because there was audio, there's actual lines and sequences with Scarlet Spider. They should have made Spider-Man India because obviously a good chunk of the film's climax is involving Spider-Man India. They did something very unique by marketing specific things to subvert expectations. So when the toys came out, the toys that they approved were not even the toys that were focusing in the film, which was like, oh my God, they learned how to do it differently than what Disney had with the baby Yoda stuff. And they subverted everyone's expectations because what we got in the film was clearly not what people theorized based on the merchandise.
Yeah, and I also like the way that they when what's the name of our Ben Reilly Spider-Man?
Oh my God, I love Andy Samberg playing Ben Reilly. Was such a funny.
But I love that this character.
I'm brooding in the rain.
This is a character that that the Spider-Man community has wanted forever. And here's the people making Spider-Man saying, you don't want this. You think you want this Spider-Man? This Spider-Man, he looks great. He's so 90s. He looks great, but there's no meat on those bones. He just looks good.
No, and that's the thing. Like, I love Scarlet Spider as a character, but you cannot. It's hard to acknowledge Scarlet Spider as being such a cool character without acknowledging how weird the Clone Wars stuff was. The Clone Saga, because yes, the broodingness, we're not talking modern day Scarlet Spider. We're talking about 90s Scarlet Spider where he was like, am I Peter or am I Ben or who am I? I want to dye my hair blonde, brooding, sadness. I don't know who I am. Who am I? That's what they did in the movie. They showed people how ridiculous that whole story arc was. And yes, it was very ridiculous.
Yeah, and they could have done more. What's funny is there's not too much real silliness there. The one sequence where, I guess we're in spoilers, right? We're literally just spoiling parts of the movie now. So, Okay. I guess the one silly part was when Spider-Man 2099 lets everyone know that Lego Spider-Man's one of the most trustworthy Spider-Mans. One of the top tier Spider-Mans out there in the world. You're one of the best agents,
Spider-Man. Thank you.
You're one of the best ones. I feel like that was silly. Also, man, they get so much work out of keeping what's his name as Jonah Jameson. Every time he's there, he just makes all of those scenes so much better. I'm so happy he has been a great holdover. Simmons.
I love so much that the one constant in the universe is that no matter what, J.K. Simmons, to quote the movie, J.K. Simmons as Jameson is a canon event.
Yeah.
Because there's no, he is Jameson. He was Jameson in 4 different timelines in the show. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, and I guess that maybe makes it why it's a little bit more of an adult theme, because the crux of Spider-Man, which we as the audience know because we experience it, we're always there with Spider-Man when he loses this thing, are those events. And what's funny is that's only one event. I feel like Spider-Man has 5 of those events. Every Spider-Man has 5 of those events because it's Uncle Ben, and then it's girlfriend, then it's Venom Saga, then it's, you know what I mean? Like, he has a number of these events that affect him.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really hard anyone else to say. I mean, yeah, because Spider-Man, and that was probably, I think that's probably why, kind of loosely canonized, why Spider-Man 29 did that little nerd from Earth 1999 and that Doctor Strange nonsense, was because that little nerd didn't go through all the same issues that every other Spider-Man's gone through.
Yeah, he's gone through the one issue. And what's funny is where we left Tom Holland Spider-Man is now he's going to go through the shit of it. And hopefully that's the movie we see. I think that Venom symbiote hopping over was going to show up. I feel like they want that thing on Spider-Man as soon as possible because it ups Spider-Man's power level.
Yeah, and it also brings in the emotional factor because, I mean, Venom as a character feeds off of Spider-Man and wants him and wants to keep that power that Spider-Man has. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Now, what's funny is I had this thought the other day. Is there any chance that they go modern Venom, the Marvel Venom, who's kind of like a G.I. Joe soldier? Could Venom maybe be one of the villains against Captain America?
It would be interesting to see it, because what I think is probably going to happen is because this part of Venom is from the Tom Hardy Venom, and that version of Venom knows that a compatible host is Eddie Brock. So he's going to attach himself to Spider-Man, realize, oh my God, I love this. And then as soon as Spider-Man gets rid of him, he's like, I'm going to die unless I find Eddie.
Right. And then we'll see the MCU. Have we seen the MCU's Eddie?
We haven't seen the MCU's Daily Bugle yet. I mean, we have, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. They have a lot of things to do with it. I really hope that Marvel doesn't screw it up, because I'm really hoping that I've been very, very critical of the Marvel's MCU Spider-Man. And the only time that Spider-Man felt like the real Spider-Man was probably the last 20 minutes of the latest movie. And I'm like, there we go. That's the Spider-Man I wanted for the last X amount of years.
Of the cartoon movie or of the last Tom Holland one where all the Spider-Man?
The last Tom Holland movie.
Where a bunch of Spider-Man.
I made my own suit and now I'm poor and I've got my GED because I dropped out of high school. Like, that's the Spider-Man that I wanted to watch this whole time. The sad Spider-Man who's got nobody.
Well, our cartoon movie brings us there. And I really like, it's funny, as another one of the big hidden Spider-Mans, if you will, that turned out to be one of the bigger players, was Punk Spider-Man.
Oh my God.
Who was not a character I was aware of, but I love in watching him. I love when he tells him, why don't you just make your own wristwatch? Like, Spider-Man forgets that for a long time, his biggest superpower was that he's a genius scientist and he has spider abilities. And Miles is definitely more of an action-based. We see so many more of his cool active abilities, but I was so happy to see someone remind him of like, hey, you can just be a super smart guy and figure this out.
Yeah, like what I thought was real, again, if it's not already on the thing, spoiler territory, again, the decision to make Miles this anomaly and put the center of the multiverse fiasco solely on his existence not only canonized everything that Sony is doing. Like, they very early in the movie, they made reference that when these incursion event level things, I don't know what they called them, these breaches, I think is what it was. When these occur, the universe pulls a character out and throws them in the mix of a new universe. And those versions aren't glitching, aren't having issues. Like the Renaissance Vulture in the beginning of the movie, he wasn't going like every 2 seconds like the Spider-Mans were. So it started to me think that these people that are affected by the multiverse issue, the ones that are accidentally thrown, are not the same issue as the people that are intentionally hopping universes.
Right. But in this case, it's not that Miles was from the wrong universe. It's that the spider that bit him was not from his universe.
Yeah.
Which was such a great, what a fun way, because it was like, wow, this spider seems way different than electricity powers. This is a much different breed of thing. And I also like that it makes Miles feel special in a world of a million Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
He is also a special Spider-Man amongst Spider-Mans.
Yeah, he's a Spider-Man that can go invisible, that can also electrocute people, but now he knows that the spider that bit him is not even from his own universe, so he is even more of an anomaly. And not only does it basically recanonized that the first movie is the crux of the Spider-Verse issue that is now affecting the live action movies.
Now, the first movie is a great standalone movie. Like, you can show it to someone that doesn't know any of this stuff and they can get sucked into it rather quickly. This movie is a part one. And if you know that, and you know what? You know where it really messed me up? The pacing of the movie. I probably should have enjoyed the big Spider-Verse hub world chase scene, but I kept waiting for there's got to be another action beat after this. That's kind of the big one of the movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's some other stuff after that that's cool, but I don't know. That was a really big one.
Yeah, the whole space train thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw that, I'm like, this is what they're doing. This is it. This is the big climax that is going to. Because I looked at my watch and I'm like, we've been here for 2 hours, and not a lot has happened yet. They've done a tremendous amount of world building, but they haven't shown anything with it. I was just blown away. I'm like, this is a part one. They rebranded the movie so people wouldn't get worried that it was a part one, but they still kept it the same movie.
Because if it was a sequel movie, all of these trailers would have had Nick Cage. Funny enough, now I'm talking about Nick Cage, about noir Spider-Man being like, you can't handle this new movie. None of those characters were really in the movie. And in fact, the only time we saw them was in preparation for the next movie, where now the band is back together. We got to get our lead singer.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought that was actually kind of genius. So you have this whole movie where you're showing Spider-Man 2099 is trying to make sure these canon events stay canon, because he went to one universe and broke that universe, because now he thinks that the canon events will destroy universes if they're not done. And now you have this anti-Spider-Man 2099 Spider League, which is led by all the characters that we liked in this movie, on top of all the characters that we were missing from the last movie.
I have a question for you. I know Spider-Man's had kids in the comic book. The baby Spider-Man in the movie, have we ever seen that incarnation on a film or in a comic book?
Mayday? Yeah, Mayday. She's Spider-Girl or Spider-Woman from the comics.
But does she always get her powers at 3? Does she always, you know what I mean? Usually
I think she was legitimately always had powers.
Great.
That was the
love it.
Joke.
Love it. Love it.
I did like the running joke that he's like, I shouldn't have given you web shooters, because that was something he didn't do in the comics. But it also is completely in line with that version of Peter.
Well, I'm going to let you know that of all the characters of who's the starter dough for the next one, I feel like she has a lot. Also, man, Spider-Gwen is such a great character. We do so much with her. She really is a great character to pin all of these things and see the plight of Spider-Mans in their versions of their worlds.
I was tremendously caught off guard by having the first 25 minutes of the movie be completely about her.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by just the sheer color palette that they used for her universe. Holy crap.
It felt like when Pixar does their emotion movies, they were not all of those scenes are not for you to notice the world. They're for you to feel the emotions, the reds, the blues, the sadness, the angst, her emo room, all of that.
Especially at the end when she reconciled with her dad and all of a sudden the room is now bright and colorful. I'm like, oh,
right.
They were making us sad on purpose.
Right. All of those real deliberate choices. Listen, they set so much of the world building and seeing Spider-Man late for his interview and all of that stuff. That is also that we get a crazy movie 3, because the stakes are so high. And I love how they've turned, the Prowler was never a individual that was on my radar. He's not a character that's very well known. they have absolutely boosted his popularity, and he will probably show up in the MCU now if they haven't already casted him in the movie.
He is. I mean, Donald Glover was the Prowler in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Right, but they referenced it, but they never showed it, correct?
And now they showed it because he was in one of the tubes with the Prowler gear on.
Right.
So, and they even said, we're sending this one back home. I'm like, they're going to send him home, and he's going to fight Peter. I'm ready for this.
Yeah, you maybe think that's the start of the next movie? He shows up in New York, and Broke Spider-Man has to fight him, and he's like, hey, bro, we're basically the same.
I hope so. And I hope that they have a live-action Miles that has no powers, that is just the MCU version of Miles is not the Miles that the live-action Spider Miles is going to be, because
they're going to
I don't want Marvel to touch this one. I want Sony. Sony pulled off some gold with this version of Miles that I'm now trusting Sony and their weird spider stuff.
I know.
Like I said before the show started, this show redeemed all of the weird plot holes that we got with Morbius, with Venom, with all of that stuff, and they solidified that not only do they know what they're doing, that we should just trust the long game, because clearly we were all getting really impatient saying, what the hell is this plot hole? Then we saw this movie and said, it wasn't a plot hole. I just wasn't seeing the big picture.
It was interesting that they didn't mix in any Madam Web stuff. I really thought this was going to be where some of that trickles in, but we didn't see none of that stuff has come into this yet.
Not yet. But Madam Web is going to be where they introduce all the weirdness going forward. And I am like, okay, let's do this.
Right, because we're still in science world with Spider-Man. I think that's when we get into the magic side of things, if you will.
Yeah. Because, I mean, Madam Web is supposed to come out. I mean, it's already done filming. It's in post. It's not going to be affected by any sort of writers or SAG strike because it's done.
Wow.
I heard some really cool stuff about some casting with Madam Web, that they're actually going to introduce a new Mary Jane officially in that movie, along with versions of Spider-Woman and a bad guy Spider-Man and a few other characters. This movie is going to kind of come off the heels of what we got in Spider-Verse so far and show it from a different angle.
Spider-Verse had a number of Spider-Women, specifically the classic Spider-Woman with the black and white outfit, the red hair. I was like, that's her. And what's funny is I never thought about them in the same caliber as Spider-Man. I guess they are now.
They have always been part of Spider-Man's lore, but because of some weird licensing issue, is that once everything was broken up, nobody could really use them. And they're doing it. They're like, might as well.
I liked it. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this isn't just Spider-Man. This is a Spider everything. Everyone is going to be represented in here. There's one of everything in terms of Spider-Mans.
Yeah. There's so much about this movie that I loved. And like I said, my full judgment on this movie 100% is based on what comes next. Because if they don't stick the landing, this movie is going to go down as the biggest letdown.
Yeah, and I think that I do have confidence that they will stick the landing, but you're right. We need to see a much differently paced movie, because this movie was long and a lot of building and feeling ramifications and seeing the differences and stuff. Because you're right, the last 30 minutes of the movie are setting up for the next movie.
And I'm firmly believe, because if you look at the timeline of Sony release dates for their Spider-Verse, the next movies that
is
we have,
March. We get the next movie next year.
Yeah, March 29th, 2024 is Beyond the Spider-Verse, which is insane, right? We are getting less than a year. We're getting the next one. It's almost like the Matrix 2 and 3, how they did those both the same year. But the next movies that we're getting in between, we have Kraven the Hunter coming out later this year, which is going to be a hard R Spider-Verse film, which is, I'm really intrigued. And then after part 2, we have Madam Web, because Madam Web is coming out. What is the current release date for Madam Web? No, Madam Web comes out first. So Madam Web is going to come out right before Spider-Verse, like 4 weeks before Spider-Verse part 2. Part 3, I mean.
If they can have any part of that Spider-Verse mojo, people will go see it in hype for that next movie.
Yeah. They got to market it that way. They got to do what Captain Marvel did with the marketing and reference the Avengers every 2 seconds so people think it's part of that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this team that is doing. So first off, it means that they've worked on these movies back to back. That this is basically one giant story that they did. They did a Zack Snyder story, but they're doing it in a part 1 and a part 2. It doesn't have to go to HBO Max first.
Yeah.
Does this team stay together? Do you think that we see a different Spider-Man out of them, or you think after this they're going to move on altogether?
It's very weird because I remember behind the scenes, we know that the Spider-Verse, the crew making these things, like Lord and Miller, they have animated TV series projects coming out of the woodwork here. So we know that they're not even done after Beyond the Spider-Verse, that they actually have some other projects they're working on. Yeah, so aside from this, let me pull up here. Yeah, Kraven the Hunter, El Muerto is currently in development hell. It's probably going to die. That's probably one that's not going to make it. Madam Web is done. And we know that a live-action show called Silk Spider Society is coming out, as well as a Spider-Man noir TV series, both live-action, along with whatever animated project that these guys are working on the side as well. So they're not stopping. This Spider-Verse is going to get bigger, and Sony just made everything relevant.
Do we know where we
see? Much better way than I was expecting.
Do we know when Tom Holland shows back up? Will it be in his own Sony MCU movie, or will it be in one of these other things?
It's supposed to be in Sony MCU movie, so we'll see where that goes. But there's always those rumors that during production of No Way Home, the 3 Spider-Man did some work for the studio to do animated stuff. So it's very possible that all 3 of them are going to show up in animated form in the next movie.
Yeah, I was a little not so. There's so many great Spider-Man cameos that I'm not surprised that we didn't see those things, but I am surprised that we haven't made more reference to any of those characters at all, because I feel like they are now a part of all of this as well.
They 100% are, and I was honestly shocked that the scenes that we got were the stock footage scenes and nothing new, because I was like, wait, I could have sworn that they were thinking bigger than this, and they probably are for the next one. So,
well, the movie's going to do its money. It's going to do well. I think it's going to get repeat business as well. Where does it go? I mean, is this going to be streaming in 3 months?
Probably. I mean, the reality is that we do have we're now in the crux of the summer box office business. I mean, last week we had the Little Mermaid come out, and everyone's like, this movie's not going to make its money back because Spider-Man's coming out next week. And I firmly believe that now, that Spider-Man has not only is basically taken all of the momentum out of Little Mermaid. This next Friday, we have the Beast Wars coming to live action. So we may not see, I don't know, maybe Transformers might pull some audiences away. And then after that, we got The Flash. Like, this month is stacked. So Spider-Man is already doing some fantastic work right now in theaters. It blew up very quickly. It had a fantastic opening weekend. And so far, I mean, its budget was $100 million. And that's a lot for an animated project, but it's already box office over 200. So in just 3 days.
Sometimes I see movies and I don't know where their budget went. I know where the budget went for this movie. And again, they got a great soundtrack for it and produced music for the movie. And it's just great.
Oh, they really did. They really did. So much of this movie, you could tell that they clearly knew what they were doing. And they not only wanted to capture the vibe of the first movie, but they wanted to show people like, hey, it wasn't a one-hit wonder. We're going to make this bigger and better. And yeah, we didn't get any biggie this time around, but we did get some really good stuff too.
Well, and I think some of that might be meta commentary when they said we want to do this hero. The fact that the villain's like, you think I'm just a villain? Like, they probably pitched Sony and were like, here's the villain we want. They're like, that's a terrible. We don't know that villain. It should be one of these people. It's like, no, this villain's going to take everybody into account.
One thing that I saw on TikTok, not TikTok, someone sent me a link to a TikTok thing, and someone pointed out one really cool foreshadowing that you were like, oh, this isn't foreshadowing until you watch both movies together and realize that they did them together. I'm gonna pull up one.
Is it the picture? Is it the picture with him and the girl scientist, the bad guy and the other scientist?
I'm going to show it to you real fast. I'm just trying to get the image to pull up individually. Okay, stop it.
Click, 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 click,
yeah,
click.
The internet is not fun sometimes.
I better resize that photo.
All right, let me see if I can. There we go. All right, first image.
Is this going to be black? It's going to be the black and white stuff.
All right. So that scene was very quick, very throwaway. Right. Somebody pointed out that the second time you saw that shot,
we see a lot more stuff on it.
Before it. No, it was this. Look. Does that not look a little bit like the final version of the Spot? As he was walking and coming toward the screen with his weird cocked shoulders. Because they pointed out that the final version of the Spot, he did have this kind of a Frankenstein thing with one arm higher than the other. He was all black. He had kind of a white outline and the squiggles in his body. I kind of feel like they knew what they were doing from the start. And they're just like, let's throw some weird visual cues right off the bat so that people will start seeing this connective tissue as they retrospectively watch it all.
I think you're right. Only because of how the uncle and that relationship is already picked up again. And now we're seeing Miles and his relationship to that world and how much of that calling was going to happen to him in taking that next villain. So I think you're right. I think that they knew. And if that's the case, then what are we thinking for the third movie? Do you think Kingpin gets back involved? Do we think any of those plot points from the first movie rear their ugly head again?
I hope so, honestly. I would love to see a lot of those villains come back. I would love to see Kingpin back. And, because this whole movie, it was all Alchemax. This is what happened in the first movie. This is what led to all this crap. Like, they were just kind of repeating how significant every aspect of that first movie was. Again and again and again. So I'm very much expecting to see seeing everyone back, you know?
Well, I also think they've now have enough leeway to open the door again for Spider-Ham, because one of the most poignant lines of the movie was the line from the first movie. And that's the only time we reference we really reference Spider-Ham in this movie. So I think it's all back on the table.
Yeah. I love that. Like, he has hammer space. Yeah. That was.
Yeah. So funny. What a great line.
So yes, there's so much about this movie that I loved, so much about this movie that is completely dependent on the next movie. I hope, and this is what I'm going to throw this out there. Like, James Gunn cited Into the Spider-Verse as one of his favorite comic book movies.
Yes, he did.
James Gunn knows the people that made this movie. I'm really hoping that all of these details, all of these things that we're seeing aren't just some. I hope that James is taking a beat from these guys and that he knows what he's doing, because if DC pulls off their version of the multiverse just as well as Sony is starting to, we're going to be in it for a great road for a comic book movie as a whole.
Yeah, and it probably means that there's a way to make the projects that you love shine again and show their place in all of this, but it's going to take a hot minute to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can't keep going around and just talking about how good we love Spider-Man, because that's what it was going to be. So let's take this home. That being said, I am very happy with it. I do think it raises the bar, and I don't think it raises the bar for kids superhero movies. I think it raises the bar for superhero movies. I think that this had a different pace than what other movies have, and I think other movies are going to have to meet its pace and meet its character beats, because the movie earns them, and they're all really well deserved.
100%. Like, I like my son said, I was watching this film, and the entire time I was watching it, I'm like, this is not a kid's movie. This is a grown-up movie that the only reason it's animated is because of budget.
Yep.
Like
I kept thinking that too. The scene where the mom is talking with him in the water tower thingy, and that's a very long scene. I was like, oh, this isn't a kid's movie anymore. You're animating emotional scenes.
Yeah, like that's when my son said the anime thing. I'm like, that's exactly what Japan has been doing for decades. Like for shows that were limited by the technology of the time, they animated it.
Right.
And that's now what we're getting, is that Sony knew we could spend $400 million making this live action. Or we could make it animated and tie it into live action and make something insane with it.
I mean, I'll give you a prediction right now, Taylor, because of how genre bending. I think we're going to get a reverse. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? And I don't know if it's Tobey Maguire. I don't know if it's Andrew Garfield. I don't know who it's going to be. But I think on the screen, we're going to see a live action person fighting with them.
100%. And I know that what we are. I mean, we're kind of dancing around it.
Reverse Roger Rabbit is Cool World. I think they're going to Cool World the next movie with Brad Pitt. That's what I think is going to happen.
Brad Pitt's going to be the secret Spider-Man.
Maybe.
Not enough people know what Cool World is, and I think people should Google it, watch it, and be like, "Wow, this came out in the '90s. What the hell?"
Yeah, it's real weird, you guys. You know, we're not. That's not what it's going to be like, but that's just a visual reference for you.
Yeah. But no, I'm fully on board, and Sony just recently, just the other night, I think just 2 nights ago, said that they're not only doing a live action. They said live action. I think it was Jessica Drew and Miles Morales are coming in live action soon. So, 2 standout characters from this. I mean, obviously Miles, but
right.
Jessica Drew Spider-Woman was a big one, and they're admitting that these are going to be live action. So I think realistically, my big prediction is at some point in Part 3, live action Miles is going to appear.
I also feel like that they were going to go, hey, we found a universe for you to go to, but it's going to feel different. And he wakes up and all of a sudden he's flesh. And his mom sounds the mom, the dad sounds like the dad, and they're like, great, you're late for school. And he zips out the window.
Yeah, what if the Spot wins, his universe gets destroyed, and then they find a adjacent universe that is live action.
But it's live action.
Yeah.
Oof. All right. We can dream. We'll see what happens. More movies are in there. I can't wait for March of next year.
It's going to be a long year.
Yeah, man. And you know what's funny is it's nice to know that these projects are coming, because I can't tell everyone when the next of these projects are coming, because more strikes are on their way, everybody. Just you wait.
Like, I'm not going to, people kind of misconstrued my comments online when I say, well, thanks to the strike, this is happening. And they're like, no, thanks to the writers for standing up for themselves. I'm like, no, I'm fully in support of the strike. I'm not bashing on any of them. The studios are the problem right now, and they better get their shit straight so that we can get more of these projects, because the writers and the directors and the actors have just delivered pure gold, and they've created a lot of promises that the studio has to deliver. And if the studios don't get their heads out of their asses and come to terms with these creative entities, it's on them.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
All right. But let's bring us home, Michael.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. If you like this show and you like what you hear, head over to that patreon.com/theculturednerd. All of your shekels help keep the lights on around this place, help us seeing the movies that you want us to talk about. In fact, all of these wonderful people, thank you so much for helping us out each week. You hear that? John I, I'm talking to you. Connor Y, I'm talking to you. Anna M, just to name a few. Thank you so much for doing all of this. Our host, Taylor Murphy, me, your co-host, Michael Santel. If you have those phones out in front of you, scan that QR code. It's a silly thing to say in the modern times, but we do mean it. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you like. What would you like to have covered? It's going to be a weird year moving forward, and all of this stuff is going to trickle to a halt. So while there's stuff to talk about, we'll be here talking about it with you. Is there another slide, or is this the last slide?
That's the last slide. You ran it.
That's great. Wonderful. Well, thanks for chatting with me, Taylor. I love you, buddy. And we'll see all you kids and cats next time.
All right. See y'all next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.